Hello everyone, I am Dr. Samuel Anbuchelman, Associate Professor of Commerce, the American College, Madurai. I am going to discuss about sample size and sampling techniques. What is a sample? In research terms, a sample is a group of people, objects or items that are taken from a larger population for measurement. The sample should be representative of the population to ensure that can generalize the findings from the research sample to the population as a whole. What is the difference between population and sample? A population is the entire group that a researcher wants to draw conclusions about. A sample is the specific group that a researcher will collect data from. The size of the sample is always less than the total size of the population. This is the pictorial representation of population, and from population how sample arrived. Example of a sample, let us say the population is every Indian, and the researcher wanted to find out how much the average person earns, time and finances. Stop the researcher knocking on every door in India, so the researcher choose to ask 1,000 people at random. This 1,000 people is the sample. What is the need for sample in research or common reasons for using samples in research? It is impractical to survey every member of a population. It allows for inferences about the characteristics of a population. Samples can be helpful representations of the population in question. What is sampling? Sampling is the process of selecting units, that is people, organizations, from a population of interest. By studying the sample, a researcher may fairly generalize the results back to the population from which they were chosen. Sampling unit. A sampling unit is an individual person. The term sampling unit refers to a singular value within a sample database. For example, if the researcher were conducting research using a sample of university students, a single university student would be a sampling unit. Aims of sampling: well-selected sample reflect the characteristics of your population. To make an inference about unknown parameter from a measurable sample static, to test the statistical hypothesis related to the population. What are the characteristics of a good sample? A sample should be goal-oriented, it should be accurate, representative of the universe. It should be proportional, it should be economical, it should be random selection, it should be practical, it has size and precision. What are the essentials of good sampling? Good sampling should have representativeness, adequacy, independence, homogeneity. What are the advantages of sampling? The first one is low cost. As far as the research is concerned, cost play a vital role because the researcher cannot spend huge amount for research. So a sample is a small proportion of your population, so the cost will be lower if data is collected for a sample of population, which is a big advantage, and less time consuming because the researcher should have completed their research work within the stipulated time. Use of sampling takes less time also. It consumes less time than census technique, tabulation and analysis, etc. Third advantage is organization of convenience. Organizational problems involved in sampling are very few. Since sample is of a small size, vast facilities are not required. Intensive and exhaustive data is another advantages of sampling. In sample studies, measurements or observations are made of a limited number, so intensive and exhaustive data are collected. Last advantage is suitable in limited resources. Where limited resources exist, use of sampling is an appropriate strategy while conducting research. What are the limitations of sampling? The sampling also has its own limitation. Number one, chances of bias. The serious limitation of the sampling method is that it involves biased selection, and thereby leads us to draw erroneous conclusions. Difficulties in selecting a truly representative sample. Difficulties in selecting a truly representative sample produces reliable and accurate results only when they are representative of the whole group. Inadequate knowledge in the subject. When the researcher lacks specialized knowledge in sampling, he may commit serious mistakes. Consequently, the results of the study will be misleading. Last limitation of the sampling is changeability of units. When the units of the population are not homogeneous, the sampling technique will not be unscientific. Impossibility of sampling. Deriving a representative sample is difficult when the universe is too small or too heterogeneous. In this case, census study is the only alternative. What are the steps involved in sampling process? Number one, deciding the target population. That means who are all your respondents for collecting the data. Second one is identifying the parameters of interest, selecting the sampling frame, finalizing the appropriate sampling method, fixing the sample size, executing the sampling process. Sampling theory. What is sampling theory? Sampling theory is a study of relationship existing between a population and samples drawn from the population. Sampling theory is applicable only to random samples. For this purpose, the population or a universe may be defined as an aggregate of items possessing a common trait or traits. What are the objectives of sampling theory? Statistical estimation. Sampling theory helps in estimating unknown population parameters from your knowledge of statistical measures based on sample studies. Testing of hypotheses. The second objective of sampling theory is to enable us to decide whether to accept or reject hypotheses. Statistical inferences. Sampling theory helps in making generalization about the population or universe from the studies based on the samples drawn from it. It also helps in determining the accuracy of such generalization. Sampling frame in research. A sampling frame is the source material or device from which a sample is drawn. It is a list of all those within a population who can be sampled and may include individuals, households, or institutions. Importance of the sampling frame is stressed by Jessen and Salant and Dillman. This is the pictorial representation about sampling. The first step is population. Out of the population, sampling frame and sample is the third step. What is sample size? Sample size is a term used for defining the number of individuals included to conduct research. Researchers choose their sample based on demographic, such as age, gender, or physical location. Samples can be specific. Examples for sample size. If a researcher wants to predict how the population in a specific age group will react to a new product, they can first test it on a sample size that is representative of the targeted population. The sample size in this case will be given by the number of people in that age group that will be surveyed. What are the various steps, important steps involved in sample size calculation? Step 1, define research objective clearly or primary question and specify a hypothesis test. Step 2, figure out type of outcome measure. And step 3, obtain historical values or estimate of parameters needed to compute the power of function of the test. Step 4, specify the smallest effect size or minimum expected difference that is of scientific interest. Specify the level of significance of the test. The last step is decide on the necessary level of power. How the sample size will be calculated in a known or finite population. If a researcher wanted to find out the sample size manually, they can use the following formula. n is equal to n multiplied by x divided by within bracket x plus n minus 1. Online method, the researcher can also use many online sources or websites to determine the sample size. One among such online sources is SurveyMonkey. A researcher can simply visit the website, enter details such as population size, confidence level, and margin of error. Automatically, the sample size would be generated. Here I have given the link and how I have given the example for that. Here the population size is 750, confidence level 95, margin of error 5. So your sample size will be generated. It shows that 255. So you can use this surveymonkey.com. If population is infinite, that means unknown, the sample size can be derived by computing the minimum sample size required for accuracy in estimating proportions by considering the standard normal deviation set at 95% confidence level, the table value 1.96, percentage picking a choice or response, that is 50%, 0.5, and the confidence interval is 0.05, that is equivalent to plus or minus 5. Formula for calculating sample size of an infinite population, that means S is equal to Z 2 multiplied P multiply 1 minus P divided by M2. If a researcher wanted to find out the sample size from the unknown population, the following website would be helpful. Again, surveysystem.com, you can use this website. This is an online calculator that helps a researcher to calculate the needed sample size. All a researcher need to know first are the confidence level and the confidence interval. Sampling techniques. In research, sampling techniques are commonly classified into two. One is probability sampling technique. Number two, non-probability sampling technique. What is the difference between probability and non-probability sampling? Probability sampling is technically superior, whereas non-probability sampling is technically inferior. If you take sampling bias is eliminated or reduced in probability sampling, whereas there is a possibility of sampling bias in non-probability sampling. Error range can be estimated in probability sampling, whereas non-probability sampling error range is difficult to estimate. The subject of the population get an equal opportunity to be selected as a representative sample in probability sampling, whereas non-probability sampling, it is not known that which individual from the population will be selected as a sample. And the last difference is sample represents the population in probability sampling, whereas non-probability sampling, sample may or may not represents the population. Probability sampling technique, it means that every member of the population has a chance of being selected. It is mainly used in quantitative research. If a researcher wants to produce results that are representative of the whole population, probability sampling techniques are the most valid choice. There are 9 types of probability sampling. Number 1, simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, area sampling, multi-stage sampling, random sampling with the probability proportional to size, double sampling and multi-phase sampling, replicated sampling. So according to the needs of the researcher, you can choose any one of these sampling techniques for your study. The first one is simple random sampling. In a simple random sample, every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. To conduct this type of sampling, researcher can use tools like random number generators or other techniques that are based entirely on chance. Here is the example for simple random sampling. Researcher want to select a simple random sample of 100 employees of company X. The researcher has to assign a number to every employee in the company database from 1 to 1000 and use a random number generator to select 100 numbers. The next one is systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is similar to simple random sampling, but it is usually slightly easier to conduct. Every member of the population is listed with a number, but instead of randomly generating numbers, individuals are chosen at regular intervals. The example for systematic sampling is all employees of the company are listed in alphabetical order. From the first 10 numbers, the researcher randomly select a starting point, number 6. From number 6 onwards, every 10th person on the list is selected, 6, 16, 26, 36 and so on. And the researcher end up with a sample of 100 people. Stratified sampling. Stratified sampling is another type of probability sampling. It involves dividing the population into subpopulations that may differ in important ways. It allows to draw more precise conclusions by ensuring that every subgroup is probably represented in the sample. To use this sampling method, divide the population into different subgroups. Each subgroup is called strata based on the relevant characteristics, for example, gender, age range, income bracket, job role, and the like. The example for stratified sampling is, suppose the researcher has chosen a company, that the company has 800 female employees and 200 male employees. The researcher want to ensure that the sample reflects the gender balance of the company. So they sort the population into two strata based on gender. Then the researcher use random sampling on each group, selecting 80 women and 20 men, which gives a representative sample of 100 people. Cluster sampling. This is also another sampling technique. It involves dividing the population into subgroup, but each subgroup should have similar characteristics to the whole sample. Instead of sampling individuals from each subgroup, the researcher randomly select entire subgroup. This method is good for dealing the large and dispersed populations. The example for cluster sampling, the company has offices in 10 cities across the country, all with roughly the same number of employees in similar roles. Researcher don't have the capacity to travel to every office to collect the data. So the researcher use random sampling to select 3 offices. These 3 offices are clusters. Area sampling. Area sampling is a method of sampling used when no complete frame of reference is available. The total area under investigation is divided into small sub-areas which are sampled at random or according to a restrictor process. In other words, area sampling involves sampling from a map, an aerial photograph, or a similar area frame. And the example for the area sampling is a city map can be divided into equal size blocks from which random samples can be drawn. Although area sampling is most often associated with maps, sometimes the samples might be drawn from list. Multi-stage sampling. This is another sampling technique in probability sampling. It is defined as a sampling method that divides the population into groups, that means different clusters, for conducting research. It is a complex form of cluster sampling, sometimes also known as multi-stage cluster sampling. During this sampling method, significant clusters of the selected people are split into subgroups at various stages to make it simpler for primary data collection. The example for multi-stage sampling is, suppose, let us consider the sample location as India. The research goal is to assess the online spending trends of people in India through an online questionnaire. This method is very popular now. We are using Google Forms. A researcher can form their sample group comprising of 200 households in the following manner. Firstly, choose the number of states. For example, select any 10 states in India. Secondly, choose 5 districts within each state. Thirdly, choose 4 households from each district. Researcher will end up with 200 houses that can be included in the sample group for research. Next one is random sampling with probability proportional to size. This sampling is a method of sampling from a finite population in which a size measure is available for each population unit before sampling, and where the probability of selecting a unit is proportional to its size. It is a better method for securing a representative sample of population elements in multi-stage sampling. Example for random sampling with probability proportional to size is if one sample had 20,000 members, the probability of a member being selected would be 1 by 20,000 or 0.005% of the population. If another sample had 10,000 members, the chance of member being selected would be 1 by 10,000 or 0.01% of the total population. Double sampling and multi-phase sampling. Double sampling is a two-phase method of sampling for an experiment, research project or inspection. An initial sampling run is followed by preliminary analysis, after which another sample is taken and more analysis is run. When this procedure is extended to more than 2 phases of selection, it's called multi-phase sampling. The example for multi-phase sampling is, let us consider the problem of estimating consumer expenditure in a particular city through a sample survey, when the available information is only a list of all households in the city. If it is decided to select a sample of households, this might involve an extensive sample, and hence the cost involved may be substantial and prohibitive. An alternative procedure may be thought of as selecting a large preliminary sample in the first phase to collect information on characteristics such as household size, occupational status, etc. And this information may be used for stratification, selection, and estimation procedures. In the second phase, a sample from the large preliminary sample is selected to observe the main character under study. Multi-phase sampling should not be confused with multi-stage sampling, although the two appear to be the same. In multi-stage sampling, different types of sampling units are sampled at different stages, while in multi-phase sampling, the researcher are concerned with a similar type of sampling units at each phase. Still, some smaller number of units are asked for more information than others. Replicated sampling. Replicated sampling implies a sample design in which 2 or more subsamples are drawn and processed completely independent of each other. It was first introduced by Mahalanobis in 1936, who used the term interpenetrating subsamples. In replicated sampling, several random subsamples are selected from the population instead of one full sample. All the subsamples have the same design, and each one of them is self-contained sample of the population. This is the example for replicated sampling. In order to study the views of postgraduate students of a university on semester system, a random sample of 300 students is to be drawn, adopting discipline-based stratified sampling. Instead of selecting one full sample of 300 students, 2 subsamples of 150 each or 5 samples of 60 each may be selected. The latter procedure is replicated sampling. And the next method is non-probability sampling methods. In a non-probability sampling, individuals are selected, based on non-random criteria, and not every individual has a chance of being included. This type of sample is easier and cheaper to access, but it has a higher risk of sampling bias. These are the 5 methods of non-probability sampling. Number 1, convenience sampling, volunteer response sampling, purposive sampling, snowball sampling, quota sampling. We'll see one by one. Number 1, convenience sampling. A convenience sample simply includes the individuals who happen to be most accessible to the researcher. This is an easy and inexpensive way to gather initial data, but there is no way to tell if the sample is representative of the population. So it cannot produce generalizable results. The example for convenience sampling, a researcher is studying opinions about student support services in an university. So after each of the classes, the researcher asks the fellow students to complete a survey on the topic. This is a convenient way to gather data, but as the researcher only surveyed students taking the same classes as a researcher at the same level, the sample is not representative of all the students at the university. Voluntary responsive sampling. This is also one of the non-probability sampling methods. It is similar to a convenience sample. A voluntary response sample is mainly based on ease of access. Instead of the researcher choosing participants and directly contacting them, people volunteer themselves. Example, by responding to a public online survey. Voluntary response samples are always at least somewhat biased, as some people will inherently be more likely to volunteer than others. This is an example for volunteer response sampling. A researcher sent out the survey to all students at your college or university. A lot of students decide to complete it. This can certainly give some insights into the topic, but the people who responded are more likely to be those who have strong opinions about the student support services. So a researcher cannot be sure that their opinions are representative of all students. The next one is purposive sampling. This type of sampling is also known as judgment sampling. It involves the researcher using their expertise to select a sample that is most useful to the purpose of the research. It is often used in qualitative research. An effective purposive sample must have clear criteria and a rationale for inclusion. Suppose a researcher wanted to know more about the opinions and experience of disabled students in the university. So the researcher purposefully select a number of students with their different support needs in order to gather a varied range of data on their experience with the student services. Snowball sampling. If the population is hard to access, snowball sampling can be used to recruit participants via other participants. The number of people a researcher have access to snowballs as they get in contact with more people. This is an example for snowball sampling. A researcher is studying the experiences of homelessness in the city. Since there is no list of all homeless people in the city, probability sampling is not possible. The researcher has to meet one person who agrees to participate in the research, and the person puts the researcher in contact with other homeless people that the respondent knows in that area. Quota sampling. Quota sampling is defined as a non-probability sampling method in which researchers can create a sample involving individuals that represent a population. Researchers choose these individuals according to specific traits or qualities. They decide and create quotas so that the market research samples can be useful in collecting data. These samples can be generalized to the entire population. The final subset will be decided only according to the interviewers or researchers' knowledge of the population. Types of quota sampling. Quota sampling can be classified into two kinds: controlled quota sampling and uncontrolled quota sampling. Here what they mean. Controlled quota sampling, it imposes restrictions on the researcher's choice of samples. Here the researcher is limited to the selection of samples. Uncontrolled quota sampling means it does not impose any restrictions on the researcher's choice of samples. Here the researcher chooses sample members at will. That means as per his wish, the researcher wish, he can choose. Employment status, suppose 350 employed and 150 unemployed people, researcher apply further nested quotas. For example, out of the 150 unemployed people, 100 must be students. Location, 50 responses per state. Depending on the type of research, the researcher can apply quotas based on the sampling frame. It is not necessary for the researcher to divide the quotas equally. The researcher divides the quotas as per their need, as shown in example where the researcher interviews 350 employed and only 150 unemployed individuals. This is an example for quota sampling. A researcher wants to survey individuals about what smart phone brand they prefer to use and considers a sample size of 500 respondents. Also, they are interested only in surveying 10 states in the India. Here is how the researcher can divide the population by quotas. Gender, 250 males, 250 females. Age, 100 respondents each between the ages of 16 to 20, between 21 and 30, between 31 and 40, between 41 and 50 and 50 plus or above 50. The last one is sampling error. This is also very important in sampling. A sampling error is a statistical error that occurs when an analysis does not select a sample that represents the entire population of data. Due to this error, the results found in the sample do not represent the results that would be obtained from the entire population. Types of sampling errors. The first one is population specific error. Population specific error occurs when a researcher does not understand who to survey. That means who are all the respondents for their study. And the second one, selection error. Selection error occurs when the survey is self-selected or when only those participants who are interested in the survey respond to the questions. Researcher can attempt to overcome selection error by finding ways to encourage participation. Sample frame error. Sample frame error occurs when a sample is selected from the wrong population data. What is non-response error? A non-response error occurs when a useful response is not obtained from the surveys because the researchers were unable to contact the potential respondents or potential respondents refused to respond. How to calculate the sampling error? There is a formula. Sampling error is equal to Z multiplied by sigma divided by root n. Z score value based on the confidence interval, that means approximately 1.96. Sigma, population standard deviation. N is equal to size of the sample. What is the importance of calculating sampling error? Being aware of the presence of sampling errors is important because it can be an indicator of the level of confidence that can be placed in the results. Sampling error is also important in the context of a discussion about how much research results can vary. So these are all about the sampling size and sampling techniques in research. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you.